Okay, we should be live now. Welcome everybody out. And last week we talked about wabbits and more wabbits. Anybody have anything to say about that before we move on to this week's? I guess not. So I would like to, before I go over the market news, I would like to play a little different video than we normally do. And it'll just be concerning financial and privacy and stuff. And think about the mark of the beast as we listen to this. Do I want to share? And a wheat field.
No audio.
Okay. So I probably didn't click. Sound optimize.
Or for the common plebs.
Have audio.
Whitney explained that elites plan to cleverly take over all of the assets while issuing carbon credits. All in the name of altruism and saving the planet. And she believes this is just the start. The concern with the carbon credits, according to Whitney, is that a landowner will own the land, yes, but they will not be able to own the carbon, air, and other resources tied to the land. In essence, your land will be useless because you won't have the right to use the natural resources on it. Whitney revealed that this was the same exact strategy used in the 1980s with the junk bond scam. And according to Whitney, the same bad actors are running the same scheme again. Later in the interview, Whitney went on to give her take on what's coming in the long run. In the long run, Whitney doesn't see any freedoms. CBDCs will be a way of life, and everything will be tracked more so than it is today. Let's listen to what Whitney has to say.
If you want to know more about this, you can look at the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero that was created by Mark Carney and Mike Bloomberg, which somehow the UN decided were the best people for the job of saving the planet. They're in charge of climate finance for the United Nations. The stop and frisk New York mayor billionaire from Salomon Brothers, Mike Bloomberg, and the former head of the Bank of England and Bank of Canada and former Goldman Sachs guy, Mark Carney. That's who's saving the planet for the UN. They're the ones reimagining this, the whole multilateral development banking system. And part of this involves this carbon market play where the World Bank, along with Google and some other actors, are developing climate wallets. They're designing it. It's designed to run on, I believe, the Chia network, which is the guy that invented BitTorrent, his new project. And they claim to be sort of like a net zero blockchain, I guess. And basically the idea of it is for people to participate in the carbon market to come. And the idea of people being able to sort of like monetize nature. And there's a whole lot of stuff going on with carbon credits and carbon markets right now. And it's a very murky legal area. And I'm very concerned about it because there's this whole mentioned but relatively unexplored issue of so-called carbon rights, where the person that buys the carbon credit can get rights to the carbon in the forest the credit represents. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So like, I buy a carbon credit in this forest, this Colombian rainforest, and now I am potentially the owner of the carbon in those trees, so I can decide what happens to that carbon. And the people that actually like own the land are like Colombians. they don't necessarily own it anymore, potentially. This is like this murky gray area. So it's opening the way up, I think, to some land grabs in the global south. So a lot of very disturbing things happening in carbon market land. And even under the idea of, reducing CO2 levels and all of that, the carbon market as it's been functioning, just hasn't done that. It's been criticized by people on the left and the right. And then there's been time and time again, it's been revealed by even mainstream media that up to 90% of all carbon credits on the market right now are completely worthless and meaningless. So it's basically like the junk bond scandal of the 1980s again. And what's interesting is that the person that invented carbon markets and carbon credit trading is a guy named Richard Sander, who worked at Drexel Burnham Lambert, the junk bond scandal bank of the 1980s. He was a senior vice president until he was brought in by the George Bush Sr. administration to apply free markets to environmental issues for Bush Sr.'s EPA, and then was contacted by this like Rockefeller oligarch guy who was at the UN named Maurice Strong to develop the same solution for carbon. And he's also the father of derivatives of financial futures, which of course helped explode in 2008. So the guy that invented all of that is the guy that invented carbon credit trading, and he also wants to make a market just like that for free water and free air, so you can, get basically taxed on that too. I think a lot of this we're going to be seeing going forward, this push to have economically destabilized countries in Latin America turn towards dollar-denominated stable coins. Like that's happening in Argentina, for example, because of like the issues with the peso there and how it's been devalued so much, even under Milei. People are flocking to dollars essentially, but like stable coins, either like Tether USDT or Circles USDC. And this whole crypto ecosystem in Argentina is pretty much, largely managed by this one particular network that's intimately tied to the satellite company I was talking about. They're all tied up with this group called Endeavor, which Endeavor has an Argentina branch. They have branches really all over the world. They're based in the United States. Their board is chaired by Edgar Bronfman Jr. of the Bronfman family, which, if you're familiar with my books, is intimately tied to organized crime and basically the people behind Justin Trudeau. And another person on their board is Reid Hoffman, who's the co-founder of LinkedIn, who was part of the so-called PayPal mafia. And probably the closest person in Silicon Valley to Jeffrey Epstein. Well, Reid Hoffman is a big funder of sort of Democrat causes and the Democrats, but other members of the quote unquote PayPal mafia are very much supportive of Trump. For example, Peter Thiel was a big force on Trump's transition team, people that worked very closely for Thiel and Thiel's Palantir, basically directed all the early policy decisions and appointments of Trump's Department of Defense. And there's been a lot of connections, I think, still between PayPal mafia and Trump. And you have someone like Elon Musk also sort of posturing publicly anyway as a libertarian and sort of in that right populist camp. So I think this particular network has people who sort of play to both sides of the political machine, which is frankly, if you want to get lots of lucrative government contracts, I mean, that's what you do. Frankly, it's hard to know where we will be, but I think it's pretty clear that there's certain efforts to push people in a particular direction. So I think it's been clear for a long time, and as I'm sure you're aware, there's a push to onboard everyone to a digital ID system. Vaccine passports during COVID were a big part of this. But there's been all sorts of pushes for it. For example, WorldCoin, Sam Altman, scan your eyeball, get a unique digital ID in a wallet you can have tokens in. People in the global south that they're basically being bribed to give up their biometric data for the guy that runs OpenAI with Microsoft and stuff. There's these digital ID initiatives are consistently tested on vulnerable stateless people, but the goal is to have it rolled out globally and to have it be interfaced with a digital wallet where the money is programmable and surveillable. So a lot of people have been talking about CBDCs, central bank issued digital currency. But there's also going to be digital currencies just as surveillable and programmable that are issued by the private sector and the Wall Street banks. And that isn't being talked about enough.
Right.
So one of the stable coins I mentioned earlier that people in Argentina are being rapidly onboarded to because their currency is being destroyed, Tether recently onboarded the FBI and Secret Service to its platform.
Jesus.
So everyone that uses Tether gets to use their money under the watchful eye of American intelligence, essentially. And those same actors, the FBI and the Secret Service, are part of this public-private partnership housed within the World Economic Forum. It's basically U.S., Israeli, and UK intelligence, plus a lot of big banks and PayPal. Their ambition is to end online anonymity, and with that, also financial anonymity. So we're seeing unprecedented crackdowns on, financial privacy tools, both for cryptocurrency and for regular transactions, and big pushes from all across the internet, really, to have you tie your government issued ID to what you do online, whether it's your social media account or really anything. And so the goal here is to have, create a completely surveillable system based on biometrics and with money that the government or whoever can directly program and surveil. So programming, it means that you can only use the money for what they say you can use it for, and you can only send it to who they say you can send it to. And the goal is to onboard the whole world onto that. And they consistently test this stuff first in a global south. So on the global south. So like what this article is about is a big effort to essentially wrap up a significant amount of Latin America by focusing at the subnational level, the local level, onto these kinds of systems under the guise of we must decarbonize now.
Yeah.
But really if you look at sort of like the fine print, I guess you could say, of this program, the decarbonization funds go toward a specific company that's tied up with this particular group that's trying to build an intercontinental power smart grid from the Americas, and they've been testing their smart grid in poor communities in Latin America, in Los Angeles, actually, in the US, and also in Colombia and some other countries, with the idea of having it all tied together and having energy be currency. And the idea is to move away from currency as we know it now, and have all these commodity-backed currencies, and that people trade energy or trade carbon credits. And basically, it's complicated. There's a lot of different reasons for why they're moving in that direction. Part of it is because of the insane amount of debt that the world is saddled with. You have to park that debt in certain places. You have to find ways to manage it, right? And so, some of these stable coins are being used for that. Carbon credits are being used for that. Actually, RFK's vice president, Nicole Shanahan, was running or managing a project at Stanford Law that was about using carbon credits to facilitate quantitative easing, which is, the endless money printing by the Federal Reserve.
Okay. I think that's probably enough to get the gist of it. If you're interested at all, or you heard way more than you wanted to, but anyway, back to agenda here. I don't know how many of you had known anything about that or not, but this Whitney Webb, I've listened to her for a while. She's a real savant, and not of the idiot type. Anything technical or conspiracy theories, she's about the best in the world at getting to the bottom of things. But so does that ring any bells with anybody? Is kind of like from the book of Revelation?
Well, I found it extremely interesting, and I liked her.
Just the ability to only buy and sell, in government approved
Yeah.
area, and we might want to buy and sell some things that wouldn't be approved, and so
Yeah.
that's kind of why I wanted to go over the markets today with that as a preface.
Well-
Say Winston.
Yeah.
Along with Whitney Webb, I know Chris has read a couple of books by her, which she explores some of these issues as well as the whole intertangled political issues of all the main players in some connections to organized crime and all that. And I agree with you. I think she gets down to the root of things as much as possible, as well as anybody. So
and tries to.
she's a great researcher.
Yeah, and I'm just surprised she's still alive. I think she's moved out of the country. I think she's in Argentina right now. But
Could be.
But anyway, which is kind of where everything's happening right now.
Yeah.
The thing that made me think of is the fact, mineral rights, that you can buy a piece of property, and unless you're savvy to that, you might not own the mineral rights. And
Right.
I guess I never questioned that, just seemed normal because that's the way the world was. But now it sort of seems like that was the same scam, just 100 years earlier or whatever.
Yeah, and water rights before that.
Yeah.
And what Joe Webb was working on in Wyoming, they were trying to pass a bill where they own the air and the water and everything else on a piece of land, and you didn't necessarily. So it seemed to be similar to these carbon rights that she's talking about.
Very
And so
similar.
in California, there's already the city won't let you store at least in the Bay Area, water from your roof because it's technically not your water, is what they say.
That's the case in a lot of Western states. It's illegal to do rain catchment.
Right.
That sounds so stupid. Let's just let it run off in the ditch and go downstream someplace.
Yeah.
It usually doesn't get used.
Well, also where I grew up, nobody owned the land that their houses were on in the community that I grew up in and I graduated from high school with, because it was owned by the M&M Cattle Company, which then leased and allowed Phillips Petroleum to have the mineral rights. And so when a refinery unit blew up after I was married, after Winston and I got married, and it did so much destruction, they just moved everybody out of the community. They paid to pick up their houses. They found land on the other side of another town and sold them the plots, because my parents had to pay ground rent for the place that their house sat on. It was only like $20, under $20 a year ground rent, but they did not own it. They had no right to keep that house there when Phillips Petroleum bought all of the mineral rights and all of the land. They had to move their homes. So you get into something that becomes very authoritarian there, and a little bit devastating too. Actually quite devastating. The community completely disappeared.
Yeah.
So what are the next things that are going to happen to people?
So recently, I think it was the House, I'm not sure, I think the House passed a bill so to keep the central banks from developing a digital currency, like what Whitney Webb was talking about. And then it had to go to the Senate to be approved. They're trying to, somebody is trying to put some dampers on that to keep them from doing that.
Yeah. I think they're going to just get around that by just adapting Fed now into it'll be a de facto CBDC, but we'll see. And some states have been very active in making it not legal tender. And
another interesting thing in California, not directly related, but I thought was interesting, is that they're they imposing a tax on companies or high dollar figures that are leaving the state of California. It's an exit tax. So when you leave the state, you get taxed for leaving.
Kind of like having an HOA. You move into an HOA, you have to pay money up front to move your goods into the house you just bought.
Some of them, yeah.
Well, that
It
was the
sounds
one
like-
that we flipped a house in. We never moved in,
Yeah.
but we had to pay that tax.
It sounds like where the US is claiming they have the right to tax anybody ever born here, regardless of where they go.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer. But anyway, as we go through these investment ideas, let's kind of have a thought about what might be outside the network, so to speak, that we might be able to buy something that was, you know, brass and lead, or food storage, or whatever that was that you didn't want the government to know about. So gold was down $21 today, closed at $23.29. I had a limit order that I'd set up last Friday for GOLD, which is Barrick Gold, that hit today at $16.99, which my neighbor said, "You'll never get it at that price." Well, I did. So some opportunities there with gold and silver pulling back. Goldbacks are pulled back a little bit, 461. And so there's another idea that could be used as a medium of exchange, I believe, and a store of value. Might be a good time to pick up some more of those. Silver was down below $30 today, and the gold silver ratio was back up to 79. And also had a limit order filled on PSLV, which is it's Sprouts Physical Silver Fund, and I got that at $9.99. Been waiting on that a while to hit, and so some, like I said, some opportunities for those who wait. Tilt and zeros were both up over $1 today, so means people think interest rates are going down. We'll see. Wheat was down to $6.15 today. So we'll see if hopefully it'll hold above $6 and be off to the races at the 740, but we'll see. DBA was down to 25.18 today. That's the agricultural commodities, and the DBC, which is mostly energy-centric commodities and precious metals, was down like $1 today at 22.71. So we'll get down to, well, I'll just skip on down to it here. U.S. oil was down over $1 today to $71. So that would tend to indicate that people don't think inflation is going to be around, or the economy is going to tank and be less demand, one or the other. The military industrial complex was very mixed today. It was about even, with up and down. So the opportunity there in XAR, especially to buy that, you know, since world peace broke out today, I guess, even though we had a lot of things stirring up in Ukraine. So it kind of surprised me. Natural gas was down to 1802. The futures was 262 1,000, and that market was kind of mixed also. Cost of production still 230, and I think that's what else we got here. We got Bitcoin. Bitcoin was quite active today. And it was up over 70,000 today again. And I was got a small position about a week and a half ago in bits, which kind of represents Bitcoin, and that's been doing real well today. If you haven't started accumulating, one thing I would like to bring up is the state of Wisconsin pension plan just invested in 2 Bitcoin ETFs. Kind of a strange pick that it made. It picked the BlackRock one and the Grayscale one, which I guess I'm just anti-BlackRock, but then the Grayscale is the highest, has the highest fees, so a lot of cost involved there. But this is the first one, so I expect 49 more states to follow suit eventually. I mean, it wasn't a big purchase, but they figured out how to do it, and I suspect that the same thing is going to happen to Ethereum. There's at least seven ETFs which will be converted to a cash Ethereum, and there's one that's out there. Grayscales is out there already. ETHE, it will certainly be one that will be converted, and it's selling at about a 2% discount right now. So you could buy Ethereum on the cheap, so to speak, instead of having to pay a premium for transaction fees and everything. And then that discount would go away theoretically when the ETF gets approved. So, or you could buy Ethereum. Those of you who have crypto accounts in different places, you could even buy Ethereum at PayPal and not have a account set up anyplace else, not know anything about crypto. But PayPal was on Whitney's list, so take that for what it's worth. And the BRICS we talked about last week, they're still going forward with probably a gold-backed currency. They're still calling it a commodity-backed currency, but I think gold will end up winning just because it's so easy. It's backed many currencies in the past. It's kind of simple. So, got our war on fossil fuels. I changed that from a war on natural gas to war on fossil fuels because it's oil and gas and coal and everything else. Kind of got a war on the middle class, a war on cash. They don't want us to use cash. It's not traceable. So I think we should all use cash as much as we can while we can. Still got a war on food, war on gardens, war on meat.
Bring up that thing about the greenhouses.
Not.
Am I unmuted?
As I said last week, cancer is at all-time high, especially colorectal and at younger ages and children. Could be what's in our food.
Hey, Winston.
Yeah.
I have had a friend that brought up something to me where he said in Orange County, there was something where the county would, or the state, I don't know which, would give you money for having a greenhouse or installing a greenhouse. Do you know anything about that?
It may be a federal program. Brother Hughes, Neil Hughes got a greenhouse, or a high tunnel actually set up, and it's a program, and I don't know how much
I
they
think
pay.
I think it's through the USDA. You can get a high tunnel. I've seen some videos on it.
Yeah. So I'm not sure.
It's like a grant money or something.
yeah, I'm pretty sure the users didn't pay much for it themselves,
Uh-huh.
and I just reluctant to tie up with those people, but personally, but
Yeah,
that's just me.
yeah. So it seems odd that the government will be promoting gardening, greenhouse, and where a lot of places are trying to keep people from gardening. That was kind of a conflict of purposes there. I just thought it was interesting. You have both sides there.
Yeah,
If you Google USDA, I'll see if I can find the link, but it's like an application process, and it's all got to do with like it saves like water conservation and stuff like that. If you have like the high tunnel and stuff, you're using less water and things like that. So
and it's all geared towards you know women and minorities and veterans and people like that have preference, of course, and you just got to jump through a lot of hoops that and
I imagine so, yeah.
you got to do everything their way. But anyway, but yeah, but they're just like in anything else. I mean, there's good governments and bad governments, and there's good government employees and bad government employees, and there's certain sectors of USDA that are actually for the small farmer, but they don't get much money. Most of the programs are for corporate farmers. So it's like we talked about the rogue food movement. Most small farmers can't afford to follow all the rules to
Right.
do these things. So anyway, seasonal information. Anybody got any comments about planting trees or propagation? I've been propagating some comfrey here lately. Of course, it's time and past time to plant that garden. We plan to harvest. We've actually been doing some harvesting here on our place.
Winston, you were mentioning comfrey. Did you get that from any special place, or have you been growing it? Or
I've been growing it for a few years, not too many, but I'm trying to remember. I got the Buchan 14 or whatever it is, the kind that's from Russia that doesn't propagate by seed, so it won't totally take over the world from you. But it's supposed to be the good one. I don't recall where I got it from right off the top of my head, but it's readily available nowadays. So time to think about a fall garden. Lots of bee things going on. I've always suggested that you go ahead and order next year's seeds just in case. And I definitely recommend you have your potassium iodine, what's going on in Ukraine and Eastern Europe.
FYI, Yoder's carries it, and it was about the same price as Amazon.
Cool. I had not noticed that. It's good to know. So any progress anybody would like to share with us tonight? Anybody?
We put up a bear fence around our bees.
Electric?
After a couple of visits last week.
Ooh.
My neighbor let me pick some sour cherries today, and as I was picking it, I was wondering, why are these still on the tree? And later on, he texted me and said, "Did you notice the black rubber hose in the tree?" I said, "No." He says, "Keeps birds away. They think it's a snake."
So
That's tricky.
Yeah, I don't know if it's true, but I'm filing that one away for when
Yeah,
I
for sure.
carry.
I could use that right now. I just I thought my guard dog was going to keep them away, but the crows are flying in real low to the ground and coming up right in the tree and escaping his vision.
Well, might want to try a fake black snake, I guess.
Yeah, I saw one up in the back field last night, but
A real one?
yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, things that I saw in my walks in the last day or so. Anybody recognize that bearded lady?
That wheat?
Uh-huh. So I've got a little field of wheat that's about ready to harvest. I didn't get a very good stand. I planted it with crimson clover, which you can see down lower there that it got a good stand of crimson clover, so it should provide a lot of nitrogen for the next crop. But this needs to come off here pretty soon. If anybody's interested in coming out and discovering the old-fashioned way of how to make a loaf of bread, welcome to do that.
Are you gonna hand harvest your wheat?
Well, I was hoping to get somebody else to do it, and I'd split it with them. That way I'd have seeds for the fall. But anyway, there's really not that much out there. There's probably five loaves of bread out there.
It's a beginning.
Yeah, but a lot of people have no clue how to do that and how much work it is and why I grow corn for my grain versus wheat. And I have some red, white, and blue chickens.
Yeah.
These are the roosters. These are the French breasts, or I guess they're American breasts or Virginia breasts now. But anyway, they got red combs, white feathers, and blue legs.
Crazy.
They're supposed to be the best tasting poultry on the planet. We're fixing to try that out.
So when's the barbecue at your place?
I wonder if it tastes like chicken.
I don't know. Supposedly they've got marbled meat inside the thighs and stuff. So I did give one to a lamb customer last week and got real good reports from that one, but I haven't actually tried one yet.
So what did Umha say?
Said they made a traditional Ethiopian soup out of it and invited a whole bunch of relatives over, and it was real good apparently.
More the meat that they're accustomed to or were accustomed to?
Yeah, maybe. And this is a mulberry, a Illinois everbearing mulberry that will produce these for almost 2 months on a good year. See, there's green ones around here that will come on later. And
That's great.
These will feed a lot of poultry and humans and pigs, and pretty much just keep.
How long have your mulberries been in the ground, Winston?
Liz, how long do you think this tree's been there?
Oh my. Dawson was climbing in it by the time he was 10. So
He's 24.
Yeah, I would say it's probably been in there 25 years at this point.
I didn't think it'd been that long, but they grow fast. We're gonna
Did
talk
we, you planted it before we sold the store, didn't you? Don't you think?
about,
Because that was 2005, right at 2006. And I think it was in the ground before that. He was born in 1999, so
anyway, it's a lot smaller than it was a week ago because we had a lot of damage to it.
From wind?
Yeah.
Okay.
or a tornado.
Oh, really?
There was different places. There were different trees that one of them is along the road and it snapped it down to the ground. And it was a fairly thick pine tree at the base, and it's jagged where it snapped it off. And I think it was really actually a twister at that action to do that damage.
Anyway, here's my sour cherries. And here's two small sour cherries,
Yeah.
Montmorency, and they've got a pretty good crop of cherries on them. See, the leaves are smaller on these, and but cherries are pretty good. Yum yum. Anyway, pretty good crop. So anyway, those are not all that old, and they were started from seedlings of a Montmorency.
Yeah.
And they seem to come up pretty much true to seed. Unlike some things.
Sour cherries.
So anyway, let's go on to the second event of the night, and
I wonder what that is right there.
Yes, and that's not picking up everything.
so if you just had one fruit tree, what would it be?
Have one fruit tree in your yard, it really should be a mulberry tree. And if you're not familiar with mulberries, mulberries look and have the same texture of a blackberry. They actually taste like raspberries. There's a lot of benefits to growing mulberry trees. Number one, they can grow in a very wide variety of gardens and wide varieties of climates. So their zone is zone 6 to 10. But if you are in a lower zone, like in 5, you could still probably grow them if you grow them in a pot and bring them inside during the coldest parts of the winter. The second coolest thing is they actually can be grown in pots, and they do produce very well in pots. Just try to get a large size pot. They are fast growing. I mean, within 1 year, I had a full harvest from these trees. But some would consider that maybe a negative because they're going to grow too quickly. But they actually can handle pruning way better than any tree I've ever seen. I actually pruned one of these guys all the way down to the ground. I will show it to you. They got pruned super heavy, and it came back with a vengeance. So you can prune them, and in fact I don't plan on letting either one of these trees get above 6 or 7 feet tall. They're going to stay short because this is a narrow walkway in my area, and so being able to prune them heavy and keep them short is going to be a big deal for me. And it's probably a big deal for you too if you have a small garden space. They're pretty pest and disease resilient. I did have some struggles with them through the summer, but I think that they were just responding to our heat. Really, the only pest that seems to bother them is going to be the birds, and that's when they start producing their berries. The birds really love their berries. I mean, a lot. And that was okay with me because honestly, these two trees produced, I don't know, probably like almost 10-gallon sized bags of berries. It was insane how much these two short little tiny trees right here can produce. Way more than my regular blackberry, way more than the strawberry tower I have. They were huge in terms of yields, and in particular this one, which I'll tell you more about later. Another cool couple things about them is that they really only need one tree. I have two because I'm trying two different varieties, but they only need one. They will pollinate themselves. And their sun requirements are pretty variant. So, I mean, they can go in full Florida sun, or they can sit here where they're almost in shade. So, and they produce the same regardless. So there's a lot of great benefits to these trees. So I got these trees last spring. I got them from greendreamsfl.com. They're actually a local nursery around here that does ship, I believe, all over the country. They have great trees. I absolutely love their perennials. But I ended up getting a Thai dwarf, which is the shorter one closer to the fence gate. And then the one behind it is a everbearing. And I believe both of these are a type of white mulberry. I think they're also hybrids. There's 3 different kinds of mulberries. There's red, black, and white. I think the most typical ones that people grow for food are the white ones, although I've heard other people growing the red and the black. Believe it or not, the red, black, and white doesn't necessarily mean that that's the color of the berry. In fact, that's actually the confusing part. The easiest way to tell them apart is by their leaf structure. Now, after I planted, they're absolutely amazingly good, and like I said, so productive. To harvest the berries, you can pick them off one by one, but if you happen to pick one that's not quite ripe yet, they tend to be extremely tart, sour even. If you're into that, cool, but I kind of like them on the sweet side. So I have found that if you shake them, the ones that are ripe are going to fall off, and that's the easiest way to harvest them, so that you're not harvesting ones that are not ready to be taken off yet. So once you're done shaking them, you can pick them up off the ground, which is what I do, but I've seen other people, you can shake them over an inverted umbrella. So take an umbrella, open it up, flip it upside down, and lay it underneath the tree and shake it, or you can wrap like a blanket, a towel, or a tarp around the bottom to catch all the berries. I didn't mind it this year, although I think next year I might try the umbrella trip, because I think that that would be so much easier. Realizing how many berries there are and how much picking I ended up doing this year, I think I'm definitely going to find an easier way to collect them for next year. It still wasn't that time intensive, but it was a little bit time intensive. Now, in terms of maintenance for these guys, I watered them every 3 days or so during the hottest part of our year and during our drought season. So during spring, when I put them in, every 3 days. When we got into summer, before our rains started, it was every 3 days. And then once our rains kind of started and my sprinklers water them 2 days a week, I pretty much stopped watering them. So that was...
Anyway, she's in Florida, so not too much of this applies to us. I've never watered ours, but other than when I put them in the hole to plant them. But I did, and she goes on to talk about canning them and making a base or a concentrate for mulberry lemonade. Thought that was interesting. Never heard of that before.
Yeah.
But we always just pretty much freeze ours if we get that many. Mostly I pick them and eat them, but because they're really good for you. Found another video that AI pointed me to that talked about the 10 amazing health benefits of mulberries, which are kind of interesting.
Want more videos like this? Just subscribe to our channel. Mulberries are succulent, tart and sweet berry fruit native to the warm, temperate regions of Asia, Africa and America. They are obtained from the mulberry tree belonging to the Muraceae family that is used to feed silkworms for the silk industries, making them a valuable commodity economically. But more than just a food for silkworms, mulberries are also eaten for its amazing health benefits. They are rich in vitamins, mineral and antioxidants, and are a good source of choline, dietary fiber, flavonoids, iron, protein, potassium, resveratrol, riboflavin and vitamin C. The following are some of the amazing health benefits of eating this delicious, fleshy, succulent fruit. Prevents cancer and other diseases. Mulberries are rich in anthocyanins, phenolic flavonoid phytochemicals that can potentially combat cancer, bacterial infections, diabetes, inflammation and neurological diseases. Lowers stroke risk. This fruit also contains resveratrol, an antioxidant capable of altering the blood vessels' molecular mechanism and reducing their susceptibility to damage, thereby providing protection against stroke. Strengthens the immune system. The berries are a good source of vitamin C, also a powerful antioxidant. It helps the body deal with harmful free radicals and resists infectious viruses and bacteria. Protects the eyes. Mulberries contain zeaxanthin, a dietary carotenoid that concentrates in the retina area, providing retinal protection against the UV rays of the sun, improves blood circulation. Mulberry is one of the few berries that contain iron, a component of red blood cells' hemoglobin. Having the right amount of iron in the body can improve the blood's oxygen-carrying capacity. Promotes healthy heart rate and blood pressure. These berries are an excellent source of manganese, magnesium and especially potassium, an essential component of body fluids and cells which help control blood pressure and heart rate. Improves metabolism. Mulberries contain good amounts of nutrients that help the body breaks down carbohydrates, fats and proteins. Among those are vitamin K, vitamin B6, folic acid, niacin and riboflavin. Relieves constipation. The high fiber content of these berries cleans up the intestines and the colon, making them a great remedy for constipation. Helps keep cholesterol low. Mulberries are low in cholesterol, saturated fat and sodium. And, as mentioned earlier, they help the body in the metabolism of carbs and fats. Relieves arthritic pain. The berries are rich in antioxidants, which possess anti-inflammatory properties, relieving arthritic pain. Mulberries are nutrient-dense fruit widely available in grocers. So, instead of munching on unhealthy snacks, open a pack of dried mulberries instead. It is very convenient for breakfast on the go.
Anyway, I've never seen mulberries in a store. Have y'all?
No.
It sounded like somebody from India.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also think that mulberries are too fragile, like for our normal commercial production type stuff. So I don't think you'd see them in a store, maybe at a farmer's market, but never in a grocery store.
Yeah.
Is a mulberry more fragile than a raspberry? About the same.
I would say they're not as fragile as raspberries, but so I guess
I
it's
was a little
just
girl. My mom used to pick the mulberries off their mulberry tree that we had in our yard and make mulberry syrup out of for pancakes and things like that. So it was a good source.
Good.
yeah,
That would be a very flavorful thing to do.
yeah. They make good pies and
This
probably
is the
things like
second
that.
year for a mulberry tree. I planted a mulberry last year and I discovered a wild mulberry last year that I cleared all the tree of heavens that were covering it away over the winter. So I'm looking forward to some this year.
Well, it should be producing right now, or at least my wild one is.
I saw some berries on it last week, but they were nowhere near ready.
Yeah.
The only thing I hated about our mulberry bush is the birds would always eat the mulberries and then poop over our windows in our car. Yeah. Clean that up was awful.
Yeah, you
Just
definitely
got the job.
you definitely don't want to put one over your sidewalk any place or near the garage or whatever. But, come.
Our dog is barking at the thunder.
Is that what he's doing?
Does
Yeah,
that mean you guys have some rain?
light drizzly kind of stuff right now. Looks like it's trying to start pouring.
Nothing here yet.
Okay, I was going to show one more thing. I think I had something else down here. Let's see. Well, I guess I didn't. One thing they didn't even mention is the leaves are edible, very high in protein, good for humans and livestock, and you can make tree hay out of them for livestock. But, keep them pruned down, and you can either run the livestock through them and let them harvest them, or harvest them and save them for hay. They do that in a lot of low price labor countries. The white mulberry was the one that was selected for that, mostly because of the silk industry. It had the highest protein, like 21%, I think. So anyway, very nutritious plant all over, apparently. So okay. So anybody got anything else they want to discuss before we shut this down for the night? Well, I appreciate everybody coming out, and we'll try to do it again next week.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No.
It took a woman to start.
Thank you.
Are we sure it's the same one, so?
Yeah, Michelle Tucker lives in Frederick, Maryland.
Good
Her
night.
husband reported her missing.
Night.